Okay, so I'm just gonna do some quick 101 very beginner tips for Pro Presenter 7. So if this is your first time seeing Pro Presenter 7, this is what it looks like. It's a pretty simple layout. I'll give a quick once over. So over here on your left, this is where your set list is gonna be. On a Sunday morning when you sit down, this should already be here for you. If it's not, just make sure that you go to Weekend Services folder and that you click on the proper service. And if you're not seeing this top box here, there's a little arrow on the top right, and just click that, and it should drop down this menu for you. Um, a lot of times, I'll try and select the set list that should be for that weekend, and I'll minimize it just to keep it from being confusing or people thinking they need to go click on something else. So this should be what it looks like over here on your left. So as you can see, we've got our walk-in slides, our 5-minute countdown. Um, we also have a bumper video in here, or a welcome video, we call it. Not every venue uses those, so don't worry if you don't see it. Bearden and Roane County, I know a lot of times won't use it. Harrison Lane, we typically do use it. Then you'll have your worship songs, and then the message should be in there. Sometimes I have to load it in the morning of if the computers have fallen asleep at another campus or things aren't working, so it's not a big deal. And then you'll have another song in your walkout. Actually, we'll get rid of that slide, that's old. The walkout, usually nothing's in there, but sometimes there might be like a specific thing that the campus pastors or your venue host might be like, hey, at the end, can we just leave this slide up? And I'll usually try and make sure that's the last slide in there, so you can click on as people walk out. But your walk-in slides are up here. I know some people like to try and scroll to get the things. Usually the quickest way though is to come over here to set list and just click on it. So that's what's over here on the left. Center are your slides. If you ever use PowerPoint, it's a lot like that, where you can kind of just click through using arrow keys. You can click on them. You can actually use a space bar to click on them. The arrow keys are great to use on a keyboard. Just be careful. The up-down ones will actually take you to different playlists over here, or different sets. So make sure if you're going through like doing lyrics that you're just hitting the next arrow key, because you don't want to hit the up or down because it'll jump you to the next song or the previous song. Just FYI in case you freak out and something happens. I have definitely made that mistake. So over here on your right, you have what's called the preview screen. This will show you what your output is on your different layers. So like right now, I have it set to online lower thirds. You can actually click this little box right here just below the screen, and it'll give you your screen outputs you can see. I'm in live right now, so there's actually two outputs, main outputs. There's a online output and an in-room output. I'm watching the online, so that's why everything is in lower thirds, even though all the lyrics are centered on the slide. But if I go to the full screen, it'll show the normal full screen one. A lot of people like to watch the stage display screen, or it's also known as like the worship leader screen. That's usually up behind the soundboard. It's what the worship leaders are using to read the lyrics and know what's coming. And this is typically what that display looks like right here on the right. So this is how the stage display, a lot of people like to watch the stage display to make sure that it triggers correctly. Different sets have different cues. So if I clicked on like the bumper video, you'll see that it totally changes stage display to where there's like a full screen output with a timer. It's not very helpful for a worship leader because it's not showing them the next lyrics or the current lyrics really. It just shows a full screen slide. So you always want to make sure when you're on a worship song that you hit that first slide. Always hit the first slide on a worship song. It should clear everything off the previous stuff, and it'll also set up their stage display for the worship leader, which is very important. Another thing about this preview box, as you can see, I have slides selected right now, and this little red bar has popped up. And that red bar is your clear all. So if you need to clear a slide of any kind at any time, just hit that clear all. And as you can see, actually I'll go off stage split so you can see. On the full screen, nothing's there now. So I'm clicking through, you can see stuff is left up, and I want to like, oh, I want to clear, I'm on the wrong stuff. Hit that clear all, no matter what's on there, it'll get rid of it. Below that, there's these little tabs down here. Typically, some people leave it on the macro tab. This is probably the most useful. These are all pre-built. You shouldn't have to try and edit settings of these or anything like that. But these macros are what are up here on this top left. Not always the first slide, but typically it's first slide of the worship song, it's almost always set in like the first slide or everything. In live, we use these macros on almost every slide in the message because it's dictating how layers are separating out. You shouldn't have to worry about it. Most of the time they're already set correctly. But if you've seen like you've got a new song and you're like, hey, I don't have a macro on that first slide, so I'll remove macro now, and it's just blank. The way you add a macro, the easiest way is you just come over to your macro tab, grab the proper one, so it's labeled worship cues, that's what we want, and just drag and drop it onto a slide, and that'll put your macro there. For the most part, on a Sunday morning when you walk in, it should already pretty much be pre-built for you. The biggest thing is it's kind of just click and follow. I know my personal taste, I like to usually click around first and get started by clicking, and then I'll start using the arrow keys or the space bar. The keyboard is usually the quickest way and easiest way to do the lyrics. Another thing about lyrics too, when you're following the worship leaders, it's best to stay just a little bit ahead of them. So when they're starting to sing like that last word, usually the first syllable of that last word, you can go ahead and go to the next slide. It just helps everybody in the room be able to know what's coming next. So for the message, the only room that will have to click on the bumper video is live. All the other rooms, don't worry about having a bumper video in your message slides because it's going to come through Rezi, which is how we stream our sermons to everything. Live is the only room where the CG operator does not actually touch Rezi. All the other rooms, typically, if you're on CG, you're also going to hit play on Rezi. And we'll show how to do that in another video. So that is all for ProPresenter 101.